folks, we are live from London. How are you doing? I'm Ellie. I'm going to show you around a little bit today. Welcome to London. It's a lovely sunny day, very blue skies as you can see, but let me tell you, it's only like this for the last 10 minutes. You probably see like the floor behind me is a bit wet, so I just had to take shelter because it absolutely poured it down, but the sun is now bursting out. So we can enjoy a nice sunny day. Folks, we're going to get started not for another 10 minutes or so. So please just let me know, first of all, if you can hear me, if you can see me, just leave me a little comment, say yes, Ellie, hello from Facebook. Excellent. So welcome if you are streaming from Facebook or from YouTube. Just give me a little smiley, a little thumbs up. Let me know that everything is okay. So we're not going to start until around 5 o'clock proper, okay, just to give people hi Shannon, hi Michaela from Cologne, awesome, love Cologne. Yeah, we're going to start in about 10 minutes to give people a chance to join. Thanks Michaela, all good. Also, if you know anyone, family or friends that think what they could do with today, a nice little walk around sunny London, then share the video with them, okay? There's still time to join. And also I want to get to know you a little bit. I'll tell you a little bit about me, and I'll tell you a little bit about what we're going to see on the tour today, guys. All right, so as we go along, you can comment. Hi Ross from Edinburgh, lovely. Is it just as sunny in Edinburgh today? Let me know. Also, let me know, where are you watching from today as you are doing, what you up to? Are you excited to see London? Have you been to London before? And what are you most excited about seeing when hopefully, you guys return to London? So we'll have a few moments. Hi Sonia from Brazil, from Mexico. Lovely. Hello from South Germany. Fantastic. It's great to see everyone from all over. So yeah, any comments, any questions that you have at all, you know the score. You guys can just ask me throughout. I'll take a few moments before we begin to ask any, burning questions you might have about London, or if you're a bit nosy about me, that's absolutely fine. And then as we go along, if there's stuff that you see that you want to know more about, or something pops into your mind, just leave it in the chat. If I don't answer it straight away, don't worry, I'll try and get back to all the questions. Hi Shannon. Oh, it's sunny in Ontario, Canada. Oh, great, lovely, fantastic. Well, I really hope that you're enjoying the day as well. So guys, you might be new to SANDEMANs. Some of you might have been following us on this journey. Hi Valeria from Argentina, bienvenida. You might have been following us on this journey that we've done all these live streams from around the world. It's fantastic. You guys, if you've been following, you've been all around Europe, but you've even been, on a road trip with Chris around the US. You've been to Japan, which is pretty amazing. So now you're back here in London with me today. So today we're going to see an area that I love very much, because I actually live not too far from here. So I live in the East End of London. So Romina from Buenos Aires says she has visited London in 2018. Okay, fantastic. I hope you're looking forward then to coming back. So I live in the East End, and we're going to kind of touch upon that a little bit today. We're going to wander around. You can probably see there in the background the beautiful Tower of London, one of my favourite monuments. So we're going to be hanging around here, around the river. We're going to have a look at the tower. We're going to have a look at Tower Bridge, and then we're going to go into the lovely St Katherine's Docks. And there we'll kind of be ending just on the fringes of the East End. Now, I don't know if anyone's ever been to the East End before, or you know much about it, but I'm very passionate about it, not just because I live there, but it's got a very rich and diverse history indeed. So I would love, to do some more videos, some more live streams within the East End. We can explore my neighbourhood of Whitechapel. So if you enjoy this tour today, let me know if that's something that you'd like to do, and if you'd like to join me again for another video, kind of to explore the different areas of London as well, those sort of maybe more hidden neighbourhoods that you might not have seen when you're coming to see all the main sites. Shannon said, love the Tower of London. Beefeaters are great tour guides. They're excellent tour guides. There's nothing that the Beefeaters do not know about the Tower of London. If you don't know what Shannon's talking about, you're like, what do you mean? What's a Beefeater? I thought that was a gin. It is as well, but the Beefeaters are the guards. They're the official guards of the Tower of London, so it's their job to guard the tower, to upkeep, you know, the rituals and ceremonies, to look after the ravens. We'll try and get a look at the ravens in just a moment. And also they act as tour guides. So when you visit the tower, you can book onto one of their tours. It's really, really, really good. Michaela says, first time in London, 35 years ago. Wow. Okay, well, let me tell you, Michaela, that London has actually changed a lot in that time, and we're going to see how it's changed as well. As we get kind of into the Docklands, we'll see a lot of the modern redevelopments that you won't have seen last time that you were in London. And Whitechapel, yes please, it's a very, very fascinating district as well. Michaela, you're the virtual travel goddess. Fantastic. Guys, also like, share, subscribe. Don't forget, if you enjoy the tour today, do as you're doing, you know, leave me lots of comments. It's really nice kind of to know that you guys are with me, you know, for the ride, for the journey. So that's lovely. Share the video to as many people as you can. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. This is super helpful. It really, really is appreciated. Also, if you do enjoy the tour, Chris is probably going to leave my PayPal direct link in the comments as well. He'll leave it probably in a moment and a little bit later on as well. So if you guys kind of want to help out and help us to keep bringing these live streams and doing, you know, this great online content that we are, then we greatly appreciate any donation, as small or as large as you like. Really, it's really, really appreciated. So there's a direct link, and don't worry, every penny does go to the guide. We really, really love you for it. So thank you very much to all of you who have supported us so far. All right, let's have a look at the time. I think probably we can still, okay, we're almost ready to go, but we can still wait, see if anyone else joins on. So Torsten, I hope I pronounced that correctly, 21 years ago. Oh wow, again, you know, you're gonna see some stuff, Torsten, hope that you have not seen before. So if I won't turn my camera around just yet, but I'm standing at Tower Hill. Might have been here before. And actually, right here is where, when we do our walking tours, this is where we begin one of my favourite tours that we do. Let me know if you've ever done it, if you've done a tour with us in person. It's called the Grim Reaper tour. It sounds a bit scary. Well, it is supposed to be a little bit, but we basically discover the darker side of the Tower of London, and then we go into Whitechapel, where we tell you about the history of Jack the Ripper. So it makes me very nostalgic standing here, because as you can imagine, I've not really stood here, you know, for a tour for about a year now, which is crazy to think about. You'll see as well, that reminds me, because I do get a lot of comments when I'm wandering around. People say, why is nobody wearing a mask? So just remember that in the UK, it's not compulsory to wear a mask outdoors in the open. So when we go on the underground, any public transport, when we go in any shop or any establishment, restaurant, bar, etc., well, we're not currently allowed inside a restaurant or a bar, but when we are, we do have to wear a mask, but we're just not required to wear them out and about. Okay, so you're going to see quite a lot of people when we get into St Katharine's Docks today, because it is a nice day. It is a Saturday as well, so kind of busy. Teague says, hello from Canada, big friend of the channel. Oh, thank you so much, really appreciate that. And Michelle is here, New York. Kristen from Texas. Awesome, fantastic. Awesome. Pedro says the pinned link doesn't work. Maybe Chris can have a look at that and check that out. If you also donate to our usual link as well, in case it doesn't work, don't worry, it will still go to my account, but maybe Chris could have a look at that now. Awesome. Okay, let me switch the camera around, and I'm just going to show you where we're going to start. Right. Hi, Javi from Argentina. Bienvenido. Also, if any Spanish viewers, guys, if you want, or if you know any family members, you know, their English is not so strong, you want to do this tour, you want me to do it in Spanish, no problem. Okay, we can do that. We can do this very tour in Spanish, or we can do any other. Ross says restaurants are open in Scotland, but no alcohol served. I'm so sorry, Ross. here we can serve alcohol now. It was the case here before us. As you probably know, obviously you're only up the road. But yes, we can go to a pub, but we can only sit outside. But guys, that changes on Monday. On Monday, we are let loose on the town and we're allowed back in our pubs once again, which is quite incredible. Okay, we have a Spanish tour of New York tomorrow. Excellent. Okay, so for the viewers en castellano, el tour mañana de Nueva York. Exciting stuff. Right, so in the distance here, you can see this building here used to house the Port of London Authority. So this beautiful building, it's a Beaux Art building that was finished in 1922, and it housed this really important authority that was started in 1909, basically to control what comes in and out of London's ports. Today, it's a fancy hotel, it's the Four Seasons Hotel, but the Port of London Authority still exists, and you can see that there's a man here, and usually people think he's Poseidon or Neptune, but no, this is Father Thames. He's an allegorical figure that represents our river, and that's really the theme of today's tour, because the Thames is, you know, the beating heart of our city. It really explains how London, you know, came to be how it is today. So that's what we're going to explore: the Thames, the monuments around the Thames, go down and explore the docklands and talk about the trade, the industries and the people that inhabited this area. Hi Nikki from a cloudy Edinburgh. You know what, it's probably going to be cloudy any moment here as well, because that's just the London weather. You know, 1 minute it's bouncing it down as it was, next minute it's absolutely fine. So without further ado, guys, let's get cracking. Okay, so we're going to surround the Tower of London as we make our way down onto the Thames, and as we do, I'm just going to tell you a little bit of history of how this harbour, you know, came to be. I'll just cross the road here nice and carefully. Hi Matias from Barcelona, bienvenido. So we'll start at the beginning, because that's a good place to start, or at least a beginning. So the beginning, of course, starts with the Romans. Now, guys, when you come to London, or when you think of London, you might not always think Romans, you know, if you're not from Britain, but they're a really important part of our history, of course. So the Romans first start their incursions with Julius Caesar. You've probably heard of him. Hi, Lorraine. Welcome, welcome. But Caesar doesn't really succeed in a complete invasion of the British Isles, so that happens a little bit later, mainly with Emperor Claudius. And the city of Londinium is founded then in 43 AD. Londinium, that basically is what we call today the City of London. The original city. It's also known as the square mile, because that's basically what the city measured inside of the Roman and the medieval walls. Michaela, German pubs are open. I thought that Germany was a bit of a stricter lockdown. Okay, so you're allowed to drink before us. Well, have a pint on me and enjoy. Yeah, Alec, so a part of the tour could be in Spanish. Not today, just because obviously we've kind of promoted this tour in English, so obviously you know, people are kind of tuning in to see the tour in English. But like I said before, we have no problem. Okay, I can do this tour in Spanish as well another day, and you can tune in, so that's not a problem. And like Chris said, we have a tour in Spanish tomorrow of New York. Hi, Paula from Argentina. So if you guys want to know a little bit more about the founding of the City of London and why we have the City of London, the City of Westminster, the metropolitan area of London, you could check out another one of our videos you might have done already. So we've got tours from my colleagues Dave and Big Ben, and they do tours of Westminster. I think Dave did a tour of the Old City. If you want to know that in a bit more detail, they explain it very, very well there. But for our purposes today, I'm just going to tell you that the City of London, think of it as the original city founded by the Romans. That's why I love the Tower of London so much as well, because it's linked to the story, to the history of the City of London that we'll get into in just a moment. But I also love it because it stood on the banks of the Thames for almost 1,000 years, which is really, really impressive. So we'll get rid of these bushes in a sec, guys. Sorry about that. As we come around the tower. This is quite a nice park for a lovely walk as well. And we'll get a much better view of the monument there. So the Romans, they built the first harbour downstream from London Bridge, which we'll get a little view of in just a moment as well. And the Romans, of course, are trading in all sorts of things from all sorts of places. Their empire is huge. So they're trading in Spain, in France, North Africa, the Middle East. So London, which of course is a great Roman city, belongs to Britannia, Roman province. So we're getting lovely olive oil, we're getting beautiful pottery, we're getting, you know, papyrus, all sorts of great things. And from Britain, we're trading out lead, tin, wool. So it really prospers in the 2nd and 3rd centuries. It becomes a really important commercial and trading centre within the Roman Empire. Ross says, is the Tower of London open? It's not open, no. Hopefully when things start to reopen tomorrow, they'll give us more of an idea of when our different attractions can open as well. So at the moment, everything like, you know, all our museums and galleries and that sort of thing, unfortunately, they are still closed to the public. I think Ross asked another question there. You can see the Tower Bridge as well just in front of me, which we're going to go down in a few moments. Of course, though, our Roman friends, well, they're not going to stay forever because the Germanic tribes known as the barbarians, they are overrunning the empire, the Angles, the Saxons, the Jutes, and they just can't contain them anymore. So in around 409 AD, Londinium is abandoned and taken over by the Anglo-Saxons. The Anglo-Saxons, though, they don't settle within these walls. Don't really know why, but they found a city called, or town rather, called London Vic, which is today the site of Covent Garden, more or less. You might have been to Covent Garden. And they don't really start to live inside the walls until the 9th century, mainly for protection from the invading Danes. And it's really then that it starts to reflourish a bit, of course. Artigue says, I went inside the Tower Bridge and the exhibit there. Yes, I'll tell you about that in just a moment. It's a fantastic exhibition. You can go inside. I'll let you know how you can do that. So you can see down here, all this lovely lawn here. This, of course, used to be the moat that belonged to the tower because the Tower of London was a fortress. Now, the last of the Anglo-Saxon kings, he dies, Edward the Confessor, and in 1066 we get our first Norman king, William the Conqueror. Oh wow, hello from Tokyo, awesome. And William the Conqueror builds this fortress. This is the original part, the White Tower. He finishes it in the 1070s. The idea, of course, is to besiege and capture the city of London. So with the Normans, we really get a change in fortune. You know, London starts to flourish again, become that important commercial and trading centre that it had been for the Romans. So that's why I like to say, you know, that this monument is kind of linked and tied in with the history of the city of London itself. And it's seen many things within its walls. So after it was a fortress, it was used as a royal residence. It's been used as a menagerie for exotic animals. It's been used as a royal mint. It keeps and still keeps the crown jewels, and most notoriously used as a prison, of course, mainly under Henry VIII. So yeah, fantastic to visit when you do come to London. You can just see the Shard popping out from behind there. I'm just going to show you a really great view, one of my favourites, this one. Because what I love about London is just that sort of mixture, you know, the juxtaposition of the old and the new, and we're going to see that a lot today, especially when we get down to the docks. So, you know, we've got the Tower of London here, almost 1,000 years old. We've got the walkie-talkie here. We've got the Gherkin here as well, that building by Norman Foster. I don't know, maybe you guys are not a fan of these types of buildings. They always get mixed reviews, you know, when people come on the tours. Some people really love them, some people don't like them. But of course, I like them. I think they really add to to the Skyline, of course. So we're just walking actually along the Tower Bridge, and we're not going to go right across it because it's very busy and it's not really the best bridge to walk across. You can walk across it, but it's just so busy with traffic, it's not particularly pleasant to walk across. If you want a pedestrian bridge, then you're much better off with the Millennium Bridge a bit further up by St Paul's Cathedral. I don't know if you can pick this up on the camera, guys, but just look how insanely blue the sky has gone back there with those rain clouds. It's pretty cool. So we're going to soon come down onto our great river, the River Thames. The River Thames gets its name from the Romans. Again, they called it Thamesis. Thamesis is not a Latin word. We think that they took it from a Celtic word which meant dark, Thamesas, because you're going to see that the Thames is very dark and cloudy. Teague says that he loved being on top of the Shard on the observation desk. Oh, a couple was engaged. That's so sweet. I have been up there as well, and I did not enjoy it so much because I have terrible vertigo. So it wasn't a very good idea for me to go up there, but I found it absolutely terrifying. There, you can have a look here. I'll just show you what Teague's talking about here. But basically, you can go all the way up to the top in an elevator, and then right on the top where it's kind of open air, you can just stand on there. Absolutely terrifying for me, at least. Not my favourite thing to do. Great, fantastic. So let's carry on a little bit, and you can get a nice view of the river. No, my vertigo, well, I don't think it's curable, to be quite honest. I don't think there's much hope for me there. So you can have a look at the lovely murky Thames here. Not the prettiest of rivers, of course. Let's try and cross the road at some point so we can get down as well, very carefully, of course. So 346 meters, kilometers, sorry, that is the length of the Thames. So the Thames is, and it's the first longest river in England. So it starts in Gloucestershire and it comes out in South. That's when its waters mix with the waters of the North Sea. So this powerful river, of course, flowing through our city really kind of has given the city its life. Now, it may look very murky, but it's not actually dirty. We'll see in a moment. Nikki says, shame we can't share photos. Yes, I know what you're talking about. So we're going to get a much better view of the bridge in a moment, by the way, when we kind of go down. But what Nikki's saying is that you can walk across the top of Tower Bridge, and again, not the best activity for me, but you basically walk across a glass panel and you can see everything underneath. So again, yeah, not for me, Nikki. Pretty terrifying. What is the tall blue building? So did you mean the Shard here? Di, is that what you're talking about? The Shard it's our tallest skyscraper. It's not the financial district. The financial district is this. Okay, that's what we call the city. We also have a newer financial district. We might get a bit of a view of it over by Canary Wharf. I'll show you that in a moment. But this is the traditional financial district. So Fenchurch Street, Liverpool Street, etc. But the Shard is mainly a tourist attraction, actually. So it does house offices, it has a bar and restaurant, but most of its money comes from the tourists. So you just buy a ticket. I remember how much it was, about £20 or so. And yeah, and you can just go up. You can have a glass of champagne at the top. It's not too bad, yeah. Until you get to until you get to the bit that we were talking about before, if you're brave enough, my goodness. So yeah, I was just saying that the Thames, it looks murky, but it's not so dirty. When people visit, they say, oh my goodness, like what a dirty river. You might think the same. It's kind of like, you know, the Seine in Paris is also kind of very murky. For the same reason, it's the sediment that comes from the North Sea that gives it this very dark, murky sort of brown colour that you'll see in just a moment. But I can assure assure you it's not dirty. Now, that doesn't mean that you should go, dipping your cup in there and have a little drink, or that you should go for a swim. Well, you could, but the currents are incredibly strong, so it's very dangerous to swim, at least in this part of the Thames where the currents are so strong. But, it's not too bad. It's, I think, top 5 of cleanest rivers in Europe, at least. But it wasn't always so. Of course, people just used the river as their garbage disposal. Okay, they used it just to throw all their disgusting sewage in. So it was incredibly polluted. So much so that in the 1850s there was a period that they called the Great Stink, because it was just so smelly from all the rubbish. And that actually prompted the Victorians to build the sewage system, which is the basis for the current sewage system that we have today, thank goodness. When they did that, a lot of the animals, the wildlife, started to return to the Thames. So there's a lot of fish that live in the Thames. There are actually, I think, 6 species of shark. Also, bottlenose dolphins are sometimes seen in the Thames estuary, as well as quite a lot of seals and whales too. Unfortunately, some of the larger mammals sometimes get stuck. So only last week we had a baby minke whale that was stuck in a lock in Richmond, and unfortunately the whale did not make it. So that does tend to happen quite often. Just going to just come back a bit so I can give you a nice view of the bridge. This is one of those sculptures where I'm not sure if I like it or not. Guys, tell me what you think. It's just kind of like a lady dancing with a dolphin. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's... Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I have a picture here, because the view is quite nice. I'm just not sure about it. I mean, it's quite good, but I don't know. What do you guys think? It does look quite nice, though, with the tower and the Tower Bridge and the Shard in the background. Yeah, not too bad. No, not too shabby. But yeah, the Tower Bridge is a magnificent feat of engineering, as you can see. It's also absolutely gorgeous. So it's neo-Gothic style with this incredible amount of steel. It has around 11,000 tons of steel and around 70,000 tons of concrete as well. The reason that the bridge was built was to solve quite a particular problem. So I mentioned, of course, the Port of London. This is known as the Pool of London. So until the 19th century, everything that was coming in and out of London had to be checked, had to be inspected by the Port of London authorities, the custom officials. So what the river looked like before was basically, you can see on the other side, these wharves here, these quays. These are some of the original ones, but basically all the river looked like that. So it just had loads of wharves up and down, up and down. But of course it started to grow and expand. There were more and more. But what we needed, of course, were the large ships to be able to come into the Pool of London. Therefore, we couldn't build a bridge. But Sol's not sure if she likes the sculpture. I can't decide, if it's a bit tacky or it's quite nice. That sounds really bad. Sorry to the sculptor. So of course we've got the wharves here. So Butler's Wharf, this one's specialised in tea. So warehouses full of tea, coffee, spices. So we had these quays on either side of the river. So we need to get across, but for centuries, the only bridge across was London Bridge, which is the next bridge along. It's a bit inconvenient because to get across, you had to take a ferry with one of the watermen. And actually, quite curiously, for a time, you could actually go underneath the river, which is quite terrifying. But at Tower Hill, there was an entrance to a now abandoned tube station. So actually, a railway was underneath the water, pretty much right here, while the bridge was still being built. You can actually do this at Greenwich. At Greenwich, there's a very similar tunnel, and you can walk underneath the river. So it was so narrow, it was so small that they actually took the railway out of the way, and they just let you walk underneath it. But of course we needed a bridge, really. So the bridge had to solve the problem. How do we get the big ships in but but we can still have our bridge and we don't block them? And the answer was this, designed by John Barry, Horace Jones, and it's a bascule system. So the middle of the bridge right here, the two sides pop up just like this. Used to be operated by steam engines. So someone was saying before that they went to the exhibition. So you can go inside the towers and they show you how the system used to work when it was run by coal. It's really, really interesting. I really, really recommend it. Nowadays it takes just 5 minutes for that bridge to lift up. It still works, okay? It actually, on a daily basis, this bridge will operate to let larger ships through into the Pool of London. But yeah, the person who was saying earlier that you could go across the top, that was actually built so that if you're a bit impatient, you could walk over while the bridge was in operation. But of course, it only takes 5 minutes to go up and 5 minutes to go down. So they didn't really end up using it very much. Actually, it became a bit of a red light district. So they had to close it down in the early 20th century. So we're now going to come around and we're going to start to go in the docks. And we're going towards one of the most famous docks, St Katherine's Docks. And this is St Katherine's Pier here. This is not a public pier. So we have lots of piers up and down where you get on the river boats, which are the public transport. This is for private ones. Yahira, I hope I've pronounced that right. Why are so many people without masks? Okay, so you might have missed the beginning of the tour where I just explained that in the UK, it's not compulsory to wear masks outdoor if you're in an open space. It's only compulsory to wear the masks if you're indoors, as in public transport, for example, shops and restaurants, bars and that sort of thing. You have a tube station, Canada Water. Yeah, Canada Water is further down this way to the east. So all of that would be part of what's known as the Docklands, which we're going to talk about in a moment. Canada Water today is one of those, kind of weird places that's very sort of futuristic and developed, like Canary Wharf and all that sort of stuff. One thing I forgot to mention as well, quite incredible, is the Thames barrier. So if you do head up towards that way, in fact, if you head up sort of past Greenwich, you'll come to the Thames barrier because the Thames is tidal, right? So you can see that the tide today is very high. So it varies in sort of 9 to 10 meters. When it's low, you could probably walk down here. Okay, so all of this area would be a bit like a beach, and lots of people do, because people engage in an activity called mudlarking, which is super fun. I love to do it. You do need a license to do it though, but it's quite easy to get. And basically you're allowed to kind of just go up and down the banks here looking for treasure, because of course, being at tidal, when the tide comes in and out, it washes up some of the treasures that people have dropped in the river, that have, thrown in the river on purpose. It's really quite incredible. I've never made a great discovery, but I found, bits of Georgian pottery and little stones and things like that. But there's a lady that I follow on Instagram who's like quite a famous mudlarker, and she gives all of her finds to the museum on the Docklands, and she has some pretty incredible finds, like even Roman coins, of all sorts of things, quite incredible. But yes, it's a tidal river just in this part. So the Thames barrier helps protect us from flooding. It's incredible. It's the largest movable tidal barrier in the world. It's further up the river. If you get a cruise, you can actually see the Thames barrier, and it's 520 meters wide. It's quite imposing, and impressive. But yeah, this protects us from storms coming in from the North Sea, as well as super high tides. What has been the craziest thing that's been found? Oh goodness, there's all sorts of things. I mean, you find a lot of animal bones as well, unfortunately. So you find, that's kind of spooky. You find skulls and jaws and all sorts of things, because a lot of these wharves as well, you know, the butchers would just throw the carcasses down. So that's probably like the most common thing that you find. But if you actually go to the museum in the Docklands, they have a great exhibition called I think it's Lost Rivers or Secret Rivers, and you can see all the amazing stuff that's been found in the Thames. Yeah, pretty cool stuff. Thames is also policed by the Port of London Authority, so every now and then you might see a sort of police boat kind of zooming up and down. So the Thames is still, you know, it's quite busy. When I say, you know, when I'm going to talk about some of the industries and stuff, don't think that, you know, they don't exist anymore. So all of this is now kind of developed, it's a bit gentrified, it's all housing and this sort of thing, you know, fancy apartments and offices. But as you go further out to the east, there are still a lot of industries, and even some of the traditional industries are still going today. You can actually just see a boat coming now. So this is one of our, what used to be our Thames Clippers. This is the public transport. If you look a bit closer there, you might be able to see. It's now called Uber boat, because Uber just seemed to buy everything. The weather right now, Yahaira, it's you can see it's kind of threatening, right? So it's probably raining over there where those dark clouds are, but just before we started the tour it was raining really heavily, and then the sun came out. It's quite warm, I have to say, as well. I talked about some of the animals as well. Eels are quite common in the Thames, and in fact, for that reason, they sort of became a delicacy. So, especially in the East End, jellied eels and eel pies and things like that. I would say not nowadays, but you can still find them. A very traditional sort of dish. So we're coming now into the docks, and you can see that the system here is what we call a lock. Yeah, exactly, Ross. Good old British weather, very unpredictable. I find these things fascinating. Usually when you come in here, there's no water in here, this is empty. So if a boat wants to come into the docks here, they've got to fill the lock with water. So as you can see, the level of the lock is the same as the level of the Thames, and then they can just open this and a boat can come in. The Docklands Museum is fantastic, Teague. It's one of my favourites, and it's about, the history of the area. It tells you a lot about the other rivers in London, because we don't only have the Thames, the River Fleet, the River Lee, all these fantastic rivers that are now underground. And it's just like, the best way to describe it is like a history of the area, of London, in fact, through basically the rubbish that people throw away. And you can see the great entrance now into St Katherine's Docks here as well. And this here is the Dockmaster's house. So the Dockmaster is kind of in charge of the day-to-day running of the dock, and he faces onto the river, so he can also kind of take a note of all the traffic coming in and out. Nowadays, there is still a dockmaster, but I believe it's kind of a team of people that look after St Katherine's. So St Katherine's began its life actually as a church. It's a medieval church, St Katherine's by the Tower. It was founded in 1147. It was also a hospital founded by Queen Matilda, and ever since it's always enjoyed like a protection and patronage of a queen, queen mother, queen consort, that sort of thing. And it also became a really important precinct for people that worked in the docks. Okay, so these docks provided a lot of work. So we've got all sorts of things coming in and out of London. A real boom in the economy in the docks really sort of began mid 18th century and sort of continued then until the 19th century. But as I say, it's still important today. I'll tell you about some of the industries of St Katherine's in a little while when we get in there. But basically the London dock and the Pool of London was the only one for a while, and then what started happening as it started to grow, they started to build more enclosed docks like this one. So these were set up by private companies, basically to make, a great profit, but also they were enclosed to protect the goods from piracy. So just up the river, where we were saying before, like Canada Water, you've got West India Docks, East India Docks, London Docks, St Katherine's Docks. So for example, those ones, West and East India Docks, as their name suggests, they specialised in all the products that were coming from the West Indies, from the East Indies. So each dock usually specialised in something in particular. So this area was where a lot of people lived who worked on the docks, so the merchants' houses, watermen, brewers, distillers. There were lots of workshops, warehouses, obviously brothels, taverns for the folks to enjoy themselves as well. But 1825, it all became derelict. They pulled the whole thing down because a group of businessmen had got together and they said, right, we'll create the St Katherine Docks Company. We want a piece of the pie. We want some of that profit and we want to build our own dock. Now, it didn't have the protection of a queen by that point because Queen Charlotte had died in 1818. Her son, George IV, didn't really have much to do with his wife. So this church that actually was a royal peculiar, protected by the royal family, it didn't really have much attention anymore. So Parliament decided, yep, okay, you can go ahead. And the people were all made homeless and rehoused in the ever-growing East End. Just here by the Dockmaster's house, you can get a little emblem of St Katharine's here. So it's St Katharine's by the tower. There's the little Tower of London, and of course St Katherine, I don't know if you know the story, but that's her symbol of martyrdom. The wheel, what we call the Katharine wheel, as when she was going to be tortured on the wheel, she touched it and it shattered. So that's the sort of emblem of the docks. Ross says East London is proper London. I'd say, yeah, of course, it's the only London. And not everyone would agree with me, but yeah, it definitely is. If you want to get a feel, for a real neighbourhood where people kind of actually live, obviously, then yeah, definitely don't miss our tour when we kind of look around Whitechapel, for example. But yeah, we'll get a little bit close to it as we end the tour. So everyone was made homeless. The company got their way and they create these docks. Ironically, they didn't really make much of a profit, which is really awful because, everybody lost their homes and they didn't even make much of a profit on them. This was more of a luxurious kind of dock. So it specialised in ivory, which I'll tell you about in just a moment, spices, perfumes, gemstones, shells, wine, a bit more of the luxurious kind of stuff. The problem, look at it. It's very small. This is kind of the size, that it was initially. It's too small for big boats. So those larger ships couldn't really get in. That's the reason that it didn't really make very much money at all. But Thomas Telford, who's the engineer who designed this dock, he kind of came up with something of an innovation, which I'm going to show you in a moment, because that big brown building that we keep seeing, that's where we're heading towards. I'm just going to tell you a bit about that when we get there, and I'll point it out to you. But he created basically these cranes that are attached to the building itself, making it really easy to hoist the cargo up and down into the warehouses. So that meant that it could be done really quickly. So St Katharine's did have that kind of, over the other docks. But it closed. By 1968, they closed it down. They also closed the London docks as well by 1969, and the area really sort of entered a period of decline. Klaus said, no sé en inglés. No te preocupes, porque este mismo tour lo podemos hacer en castellano otro día y mañana tenemos un tour de Nueva York en español, ¿vale? No te preocupes. Don't worry, Clau. All in good time. We've got here an excellent pub, guys. Don't forget it when you come. The Dickens Inn, named after, of course, famous author Charles Dickens. This is an example of a warehouse that would have stood here. You can see, I'm not really sure if the timber is the original timber. That would be pretty amazing, but I actually have a feeling that it is. So you can hear the people maybe. So like I say, you are allowed in the pub but not inside. So all of this, you can sit outside, you can have a drink, you can have something to eat. They used to, well, I say used to, like in Victorian times, everything was in candlelight here, but obviously health and safety, not a good idea with all the timber for sure. Thank you. You can see today though that this is a bit of a fancy Marina, okay? So people actually live here, people come here to visit, so you can see it's not really, the sort of docks that it once was, housing the casual labourers of the Docklands. No, it's full of fancy yachts. So lots of Londoners choose to live on the water. Guys, maybe do you have this in your country? Does anyone live on a boat? Would you live on a boat? Because plenty of Londoners choose to do it. I've got friends, that live on boats, that live on narrow boats, on the canals. But to live in a marina is a little bit different. This is the only marina in central London. So there are a few ways that you can live on a boat here in London if it's something that you particularly feel like doing in the future. You can have a residential mooring, and that could either be in a marina like this. Advantages that, as you can see, you've got lots of restaurants, you've got bars, you've got a gym, you've got cinema, you've got all the facilities, and you've got people that look after it. Yeah, reminds me of the houseboats in Amsterdam. Exactly, yeah, kind of a similar thing. Lots of people do choose the boat life. And near Vancouver in Canada, people have houseboats as well. Yeah, so houseboats are not, like when you say houseboats, maybe you mean, I don't know if you mean, going over the bridge now. I don't know if you mean like ones that are sort of stuck there permanently. But here it's more kind of, they are obviously, as you can see, movable boats. So along the canals, you can also have permanent moorings. But you can also, they're really difficult, by the way, difficult and expensive. But you can also have a mooring, which is like a temporary one, what they call cruising. But that just means that every 2 weeks you have to move your boat up and down the canal, which is kind of a bit annoying. If you wanted to live here in St Kat's, it would set you back quite a bit. So it's around £15,000 a year for the mooring here. But like I say, a lot of people just come in for the season, they come on their holidays and they come in. But we're just about to go through the sort of area of the restaurant, so apologies if it sort of gets a bit loud, but just so you can see, that people make their life here. Obviously not all residents, you can get people just, I like to come here for a drink because it's quite pleasant to sit here. So everyone out, but you've got to put your coat on. But that doesn't stop people in Britain, from coming out for a drink, obviously. There's a very famous boat here as well. We can't see it today though, but the Gloriana is kept here, which is actually the royal barge. So that's used for the Queen. It was last used. So nice. It's just so quirky, it's very, only in London, it's kind of that kind of place, isn't it, really? There's also a famous resident of this particular marina. I mean, I don't know how familiar you guys are with him, but he's very famous here in Britain. David Suchet, and he plays Poirot, Hercule Poirot. Agatha Christie's famous detective. That's the role that he's most famous for, and he actually lives here in St Katherine's Docks as well. Just before we exit the docks, I'm going to give you a better view. This building that we've been kind of walking around is called Ivory House, and I'm just going to show you. Sorry if there was a little lag there in the tunnel, but probably the signal went a little bit. Sunglasses and waterproofs required. Exactly, Ross. Exactly. I've got my sunglasses in my pocket because you never know. It's actually raining right now. So here's the Ivory House, and if I just pan up, you can see what I was telling you about. So this is like an example of one of the hoists that could be used then to take the cargo up and into the warehouse here. So this was one of the largest warehouses of St Katherine's, and in fact it's the only warehouse that's still standing, like original warehouse. It's pretty spectacular, and it's called Ivory House, of course, because its main trade, its main product was ivory, elephant tusks. And as we come out of the docks, we'll see the elephants in a moment that kind of stand at the entrances. Is that grey and white one your yacht? Yep, that's mine. When I finish the tour, I'll be coming back to chill on my yacht. I actually do know someone that lives here. Well, not permanently, but they come here for holidays. And I did get to go on one of the yachts once, but Boat life is not for me. I get terribly seasick, even just sat in the marina. That's really sad, I know. So there you can see the elephants there. A sad reminder, of course, of what the ivory trade means, but it was really important in the economy here. So they imported around 200 tons of ivory a year in the boom, in the 19th century. And London was pretty much the biggest importer of ivory in the world. What did they want, goodness, with so much ivory? Well, they used it for all sorts of things. So they used it for toys, jewelry, they used it for piano keys, billiard balls, all sorts of things. But very sad, of course, and very cruel industry, which actually just before we sort of finish reminds me of another cruel industry that we have not spoken about yet, which is, of course, the slave trade. Because all the streets, all the statues, all the buildings, all the monuments in this area are built from the profits of the slave trade. And it made families. A lot of the rich families in this country today, and even some of the aristocratic ones, their wealth and even in some cases their titles were made possible by the transatlantic slave trade. It really was vital to the economy of the country, and then later, obviously, the British Empire. In Britain, it was known as the triangular slave trade, because when you look at the route on a map, it sort of forms a triangle. So what happened was that ships would set sail from Britain, and they would be carrying their cargo then to trade on the coasts of West Africa. And they would arrive there, and there they would procure the slaves. Now, in the early days, so we're going back so it began in the late 16th century, early 1600s. In the early days, pirates might steal people from Spanish slave ships, or they might raid villages and towns. But later on, it was a bit more organized than that. So usually there was a person, British person called a factor, that lived on the African coast, and it was their job to procure the slaves from the local tribal chiefs. The Brits would then arrive and they would trade their goods, so around £3 worth of goods. This could be gunpowder, brandy, stuff like that, but around £3 worth per person. They then took the slaves over to the West Indies, and of course there the slaves were sold at auction for around £20 to £25 per person. Now, if you're thinking, that's a lot of money back then, but also just think of what an insane profit margin that is. So that meant that for the slavers, it was worth the risk, obviously, of the Middle Passage, which was the dangerous crossing over the Atlantic where many of the enslaved peoples did not make it. Then, once the slaves had been sold, they then took the proceeds back, of course, from the plantations, sugar and rum, and back to Britain to unload here, in the Docklands. So that's why it's called the triangular slave trade. So the Slave Trade Act came in 1807, and that meant that trading in people was illegal in the empire, but it didn't abolish slavery itself. So it continued until 1833 was the Act of Abolition. So I've gone on for quite a while now. I've not quite made it as far as I wanted to, but I'm just going to share with you a tiny bit more so you can get an idea of where I want to go next time. These very imposing Victorian walls actually enclose the docks here, and it just reminds us of kind of the way it was before. So if we just have a look at this Georgian building here, I just find it fascinating. It's so pretty, but just how it imposes on the brand new development. So all of this area that goes down into the East End was known colloquially as Sailor Town, because of course this is where people lived. Now this area is known as Moor Town, so it's one of these sort of fancy, gentrified developments. And as we go around, I'm just going to finish just up the road so you can see, but we're coming now onto the fringes of the East End, Aldgate, and my neighbourhood of Whitechapel. So of course these areas were full of people coming looking for work, because the docks of course provided a lot of work for people, not just working, you know, loading and unloading cargo, but also the different industries up and down the Thames, like sugar refining, oil refining, cement, armaments, shipbuilding, timber yards, all sorts of things. So there was opportunity for quite a lot of work, but most of the workers here were casual labourers, but it wasn't always so. So first of all, they had a permanent wage, you know, in the first sort of boom in the 18th century, because if you worked on the docks, you might be waiting weeks for a ship to come in. So you can't go weeks without a wage. But then, of course, greed came along, free trade came along, competition came along, and who should suffer but the workers? So that meant that the casual labourers had to show up every day at those gates that we just came out of and hope and pray that there was some work for them that day. Incredibly poorly paid work, obviously. And in the 19th century, of course, the area of the East End really sort of started to develop because of the docks, and it became very overcrowded, overpopulated as well, very poor and precarious living and work conditions. So you also had great influxes of immigrants. It's always been so in the East End. Political refugees, like back in the 1600s, you first had the French Huguenots, the Protestants. You had the Irish immigrants fleeing the potato famine in the 1840s, Jewish immigrants, and more recently Bangladeshi immigrants that come in the 20th century. Yeah, Ross, exactly. Whitechapel is the brown on the Monopoly board. Yeah, that gives it away because it's not very expensive. I think it was Whitechapel and the Old Kent Road, I think, are like the cheapest ones on the Monopoly board for sure. So we're just going to end across the road here, where we can just get a little glimpse of the East End. So traditionally the East End, a very poor district of London, especially in the Victorian era. And this is where we're going to end up. So you can just see just ahead the buildings, the church, old cooperative building in the distance, and basically that is the beginning of Aldgate. We're now in what we call the Tower Hamlets. So the Tower Hamlets are the East End. It's a massive area. It includes the boroughs of Poplar, Bethnal Green and Stepney, and this includes other districts like Whitechapel, Spitalfields, Bow, St Katharine's, etc. So, guys, this has been absolutely lovely, but I'm going to leave you very shortly, and I really hope that you've enjoyed kind of exploring the docks with me, and I hope that you're tempted then to kind of continue and explore with me next time a little bit deeper in the East End, because I did want to go a little bit deeper, but I've already been going on for nearly an hour, so I think I don't want to saturate you, you know, and I think that's kind of enough for today. So guys, you can find the link. Oh my goodness, very noisy today. Road rage. You can find the link for the PayPal, I'm being told, in the comments or the post and video description. So I'll just turn my camera around as well. Thank you guys. All right, here's a pub that's not opened yet. Thank you guys, I really hope that you did enjoy it. So like I said, share, like, subscribe, all that stuff. And as I said, the link is there in the comments if you want to leave a little donation. Really, that's so much appreciated, but more than anything, I've just enjoyed kind of spending some time with you guys today. I'm really happy that you enjoyed it as well. We would love to have you back. Thank you. Well, I would love to be back. But in the meantime, you know, check it out. We've got some more tours coming up, I believe, this weekend. Guys, if you have any more questions, you know, get them in. I can answer a couple more if you like as well. But yeah, it's been great. It's just, I think, starting to rain again now, so I finished just in time, and basically I'm going to walk home this way. This is also Cable Street here on the corner. This is a very historic street indeed, but I think I'll tell you about that next time. because it's worth kind of doing something, on its own. Teague says, thanks very much. Sending Commonwealth love. Oh, thank you. Commonwealth love received. Thank you. Thank you, Nikki. Thank you. Really glad you enjoyed it, guys. Teague says, what tube station would be near the area we're in? So the train that you can see behind me, that is going down towards Shadwell. So there are a few. Tower Gateway is the nearest one that way. Then there's Tower Hill, which is where we started, which is not too far. And then if there's Shadwell, which is the next one kind of along here. And then if you went up in a straight line, you would get to Aldgate and then Aldgate East. So yeah, you can pick and choose here. That's actually the overground that you see behind me. So we still call it the tube, but we've got underground, overground, DLR, which goes through the Docklands that you were saying before, Canada Water. So I quite like the overground because it's a bit, the trains are really modern, they're air conditioned, they have Wi-Fi, and you can even charge your phone on them now, which is really great. Okay, awesome guys. Well, I'm going to head off now, but thank you so much for joining me. I've really enjoyed it. I really hope you have too. And I will see you on the next tour. So big kisses from me, from London, and have a great day, guys. Bye.